Welcome to our virtual briefing today, protecting the Microsoft suite. My name is Shane Taylor, I'm CEO of Mobliciti, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to introduce the agenda and also our speakers today, and then we'll get right into the content of today's briefing. We'll be going through the just a couple of secs on who we are, but we'll also be looking at the mobile threat market today, the reason we're here, and how that may have changed, and what we think 2022 looks like. In particular, we're focused on the Microsoft suite and how we can better help protect that. We're going to show the technology in action, which is always good, so we'll be doing a demonstration on that, and then please ask questions as you go along. I'll be making a note of those, and then we can ask our panel at the end as to answering some of those questions. So if we look at our panel for today, I'm also joined by my CTO, Andy Brown. He's going to give a view of the mobile threat market and his view of that, having sat in front of many customers and discussed this for many years now. Delighted to be joined by one of our key partners in this space, so Matthew Irwin from Zimperium, and also Sergey Straub, who are going to be going through their view on the market and also the technology that they provide. So that's your speakers for today. Just a minute or two for those of you that don't know Mobliciti. So we've been around for 13 years. We actually delivered our first mobile threat solution back in 2013. So it's not a new technology, but it's very much advanced over the years, as has the threat, and we'll be talking more about that. But us as a business, we're purely focused on cloud and mobile IT. Our client base largely in the legal and finance sectors, so companies are obviously regulated and need to stay incredibly secure, and more often than not we provide managed services when we deliver these technologies, including mobile threat. So that's just a little bit about us, but let's get into the meat of today's webinar, and I'll hand over to Andy Brown to give his view on the market. Andy.
Thanks, Shane, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, a little bit to, just to set the scene, what we're seeing in the market and how it's been evolving over time. So the mobile threat defense market, I think the first important thing to say is it's actually been around for quite some time now. It's actually quite a mature area of the market. As Shane mentioned, we've been delivering solutions in this space for some time. And it's actually not that long after the mobile operating systems were really starting to get traction in the market, because clearly it was there was a gap in the security around this space from the early days. And I think if you go back to the beginning, there was a really interesting dynamic in the market back in the day around people thinking, okay, Android is a bit of a security nightmare. Those with longer memories will know that Android was seen as a bit of an open source nightmare, but iOS is secure, and that view is still permeating through over time as well. I think where we're reaching now is actually there's what started off as about protecting the device. So taking a very sort of PC-centric view of the world and thinking about, right, how do we protect the software and the endpoint, has actually transitioned over time as well to be much more about how do we protect the user themselves, because what's become very noticeable over time is users are much more vulnerable on mobile devices than they are perhaps on a bigger screen. And that's been seized upon by bad actors as well. And I think where we've landed to a certain extent is what I call the MTD paradox, which is quite often we'll see people say, we haven't got a problem here, that there is no issue. To which the obvious answer is very often, well, how do you know? Because your visibility in this area can often be quite compromised if indeed you've got anything at all. And I know that, when Matt starts to speak, he'll talk about some of the scenarios where very large organizations, companies, even governments are potentially blind if they don't have some level of ability to view what's going on mobile endpoints. Because what we can say with absolute kind of guarantee, I guess, is that people who deploy a mobile threat defense solution will find issues. It is inevitable because of the way the handsets are used, the way the handsets are traveling around, the way users will interact with those handsets. It's just a fact of life that they are now often the way that bad actors are looking to target organizations. And the interesting thing that we're now seeing as well is that things like Pegasus, which again, I'm sure Matt will be talking about shortly, but Pegasus and the bad actors in the mobile threat space, this is actually headline news now. And that's quite an interesting moment where we're actually talking to IT managers who are saying that their senior users are asking them for the first time about what's going on in how do we protect ourselves against this kind of stuff for obvious reasons. And then there's this wider, that we're obviously going to be talking about Microsoft 365, in particular O365, and the kind of security conundrum that you have in this space as well, which is people are signing up to a service that looks very much like everyone else's service. And that there is this very real problem starting to emerge in the market, whereby if your security is the same as everyone else's, then you are as vulnerable as everyone else and potentially a target, because it's becoming something that bad actors can go after in itself, because it's kind of, write your exploit once and you can obviously attack many. And so this is becoming a growing space, and mobile as an extension of it is very much something that needs to be considered, and we'll be demonstrating the capabilities in that space also. Just to finally add that this kind of perception that iOS is secure and Android isn't, the simple fact is that the stats don't align with that anymore. If you actually look at the number of published exploits, known exploits, and exposures that you're seeing across Apple and Android, that the trend is up fundamentally. And what's also noticeable over time is that the severity of the issues that are being found are absolutely growing over time also. And obviously you can see that actually, if you look at a weighted average of Android versus iOS, there's no real difference. And I think it's important to note this, that it is entirely possible to compromise an iOS device to a level where all bets are off. And I think whilst sometimes that can be seen as the extreme end, that the reality is that it is very possible and doable now in the market. So probably enough from me for the time being. I'm going to hand over to Matt now and let him take over and have a conversation about this whole area of the Microsoft suite and how Zimperium is going to assist with that. Are you with us, Matt?
I am. Sorry, Andy. Here we go.
Just excellent stuff.
Find the right button. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you can see my screen. Can you see it, Andy?
Indeed, we can. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, just a second. Okay, cool. Yeah. Good morning, all. So, as Andy said, I'm Matt Owen. I'm the sales director for Zimperium in the UK. And my colleague Sergey Straub is one of our lead pre-sales engineers who will be doing a demo shortly. But what we want to touch on is how you can enable your employees to access the Microsoft suite securely on their mobile devices. So I will run through a couple of slides and then get into a demo as soon as we can, so it gets a bit more interesting for you guys to see the stuff in the real world. So very quickly, Zimperium. Some people on this call I think are already Zimperium customers, but Zimperium is a US software company that does one thing, and that is to enable enterprises to use their mobile devices and applications securely. So we're purely focused on securing iOS and Android devices or the applications running on those. And as you can imagine, there's a hot space at the moment, and Zimperium sort of doubling in size every 18 months. There's about 20 or 30 of us in the UK, about 300 globally, as a sort of fast growing space. Just to give you a bit of confidence that other organizations have the same interests as you attending this call. So these companies here are all Imperium customers, and the point I like to make here is that these are some of the big guys, and these are the companies with big IT security departments, and they have the resources to look at risk, and they've all realized that mobile poses a significant risk to them, and then they went out through the normal RFP and POC process and selected Imperium and deployed Imperium. And these big banks and big manufacturing companies and big government departments, there's other lawyers and other companies not on here as well, but they have deployed Imperium to all their mobile devices. It's not just their execs or people that are traveling. They realize that these mobile devices could be the weakest link in their security strategy. So they put Imperium on all these mobile devices. So hopefully that gives you some confidence that that this, first, there's a problem, and secondly, there's a solution out there that meets the requirements of some of the big guys. So this is probably a slide you're seeing off from a lot of vendors at the moment, but what's happening post-pandemic, and what we're seeing, and I'm sure you're agreeing, is that the days of your staff doing most of their work on their computing devices, being inside the secure network, those days are over. Working from home, accessing business tools and resources remotely is the new norm. So that the trust center has definitely moved, and enterprise IT needs to move with that and allow people to securely access the right information on the right device from wherever they may be. So talking about digital transformation, which O365 is a massive driver. The two areas we're going to touch on today are the remote working and BYOD, and there's no reason here why O365 can't be given to employees securely on any device. The actual device should not be the issue. It's just making sure the right people are accessing the right data, as I said, from a device that is trusted. And that's where we come in and take this whole zero trust sort of architecture and allow you to give your employees accessing this information on their preferred device, wherever they may be. And as we realize, we're also IT savvy on this call, what you can do on your mobile device now is basically the same as what you do on your laptop. There's not much you can't do on a mobile device that you do on a laptop, and maybe get a bit fiddly with spreadsheets, but basically, your mobile device can do sort of 95% of what your laptop does or desktop does. So you obviously need to have similar levels of security on these mobile devices that you do on your laptops and desktops. So Andy mentioned the news recently, and there's a lot more news coming through around the risks of mobile. And poor Boris on Monday was splashed across several newspapers, front page newspapers, headlines, and this is the BBC. The picture of Boris here from the BBC website on Monday, where if the Prime Minister of a country, it's also happened in France and Germany, is being hacked on their mobile device, then I think we should all wake up to realize that these mobile devices, aren't as secure as Apple once led us to believe they are. So there's a number of different ways that mobile devices can be compromised, and Pegasus is the one that sort of made the headlines. But what I do like to sort of say around Pegasus is that, though it's a major threat and it's supplied by an Israeli organization and sold to government agencies, and has been used against lawyers and journalists and politicians. The point here is that Pegasus is just one example. It's just an extreme example, but it's one example of how a mobile device can be compromised and basically turned into a listening device, or emails can be extracted, passwords can be extracted. Once you compromise a mobile device, it's really game over, as Andy said. That device is given over. The attacker has remote control of that device, and all the wonderful keychain storage or the containerization that Apple or Google may give you, that no longer applies once a mobile device is compromised. So very briefly on how these devices are compromised. And it's the same with any sort of IT tool. As this code gets more and more complex, apparently for every million lines of code, there's going to be another bug or vulnerability. And these bugs and vulnerabilities keep on coming for iOS and for Google. And last year, Apple patched 17 security vulnerabilities. So even they admit were being exploited in the wild. So these vulnerabilities are the way that things like Pegasus, because Pegasus actually gets reinvented or keeps on changing. It's a cat and mouse game. As Apple patches one vulnerability, the suppliers of Pegasus NSO Group or other hackers will find other vulnerabilities. So this cat and mouse game is ongoing, and there's never going to be a time when there's no vulnerabilities on any of these operating systems. So it's important that you patch these devices, obviously, but the issue is the date between that vulnerability being found, normally by a hacker, and then being exploited, and Apple or Google patching it, that's normally quite a long period. And that's when these devices are open to compromise. And ideally, you need some security tool to tell you that they're open to compromise and to catch these zero-day attacks. But that's when things like Pegasus happens, when there's a vulnerability on the device and it hasn't been patched. So the issue is, how do you manage that risk? So one of the topics today is, what are the four main risks of using a mobile in the enterprise? And it's important. We look at this in two ways. We see, the attacks from the attackers, whether it be state-sponsored stuff, using sort of Pegasus tools, or whether it be cyber criminals or script kiddies or disgruntled, sort of IT graduates. Attacks come from certain types of people, but also the risks are from the employees. These semi-IT savvy employees, you're giving them a pretty powerful computing device. And basically that they have admin access on that computing device, and they can sort of really do what they want. They can install what they want. They can connect to any network. They can click on what they want. So a number of risks come from the employees as well. But we sort of narrow it down into four main sort of pillars of security when it comes to securing mobile devices. So the actual device, so that's the operating system on that device, or is it patched? Are there vulnerabilities on that device? And how do you know about those vulnerabilities? And if that particular device, or what devices in your fleet are susceptible to what vulnerabilities at the moment? And then you put profiles or configurations on these devices as well. And some of these profiles can lead to the device being compromised. Then after the device is the actual applications that run on that device. Most apps on the device, go through an app store and are checked by Apple and Google and are secure and do what they say they do. But a number of applications slip through what Apple and Google check, and actually Zimperium works with Zimperium to check every app in every Android app store. So we've got a pretty good view of what these apps do. But a number of apps do slip through, or third-party apps, or apps are sliced, loaded onto a device. And these apps, they think that the app is doing what you expect it to do, but you don't really know if that app is sending data off that device, if a particular app is accessing the address book or the clipboard on that device. And that's a real blind spot for companies. So ideally, you want to have the ability to first check that before the app goes on the device, it's not doing anything that it shouldn't do. And secondly, when it's on the device, it's actually meeting your policy of accessing the relevant data. And then there's phishing. Phishing is a huge risk on mobile. We're getting more savvy at catching phishing links. You see on your desktop or laptop, you look at an email, you look on the link on that link, or the URL before you click on an email link. And you can normally work out, that doesn't look like, my banking URL address or Netflix password change, or whatever it is. So people are getting pretty savvy at checking or not clicking on silly phishing links on their desktop or laptop. But on a small screen, it's nearly impossible to tell if that URL, that link in that SMS message, that WhatsApp message, or that email, is it genuine or not? And invariably, people will click on it. And we're seeing phishing as a massive route to exploit on mobile, where people are giving up their passwords to either personal websites or even to O365 or Microsoft or business logons. And lastly, the network. These people have these great computer devices, and they're moving around the country, even the planet, and they're connecting to all sorts of different networks, at home and offices, but also more worryingly in coffee shops and airports and shopping malls and so on. And we're seeing a lot of rogue Wi-Fi networks pop up. They could be just people having a bit of fun, just some sort of IT script kiddie, putting up a Raspberry Pineapple and just catching people and seeing what they're doing. But we're definitely seeing some legitimate phishing, some so legitimate man-in-the-middle attacks or rogue access points, popping up in coffee shops and calling themselves, Starbucks, free Wi-Fi or something, and people just automatically log on to these things. And one of these rogue Wi-Fi networks can easily intercept your traffic and see what you're doing, and see what websites you're visiting and so on, and track your data. So it's a big worry that people are connecting to networks that aren't secure, and ideally you won't be able to prevent these users from doing that. So these are the main 4 risks we see of using a mobile device for business. And if you want any more detail about this, Zimperium recently published a mobile threat report. So we have over 100 million mobile sensors around the planet, and we collated all this data and put it into what we believe is the industry's most thorough report on mobile risk. It's that sort of 70 or 80 pages, but more importantly, how this applies to you as a risk owner. It's not just a load of wizzy malware and stuff. It's actually, what are the risks to you in your industry or in your geography? Our friends at Mobliciti can send you this report after this webinar, if you so like. So we talked about these risks, and you obviously want to empower your users and increase their productivity and give them access to the right tools. So how do you go about minimizing these risks so you can make these employees productive without the concern of data getting into the wrong hands? So Gartner coined the phrase recently of mobile threat defense, and is recommending that enterprises deploy a mobile threat defense solution to give them basically the same level of security and control that they have on their desktop and laptops. And this table here shows that in the desktop and laptop world, you have your client management, your endpoint protection, so your antivirus, but also your EDR, so your CrowdStrike or your McAfee or Symantec or whatever tools you have. But in the mobile world, that antivirus and EDRs come together to be called mobile threat defense. And that's a solution that a lot of organizations are looking at today to complement and support or even enable their O365 rollout and usage. A lot of people think that, hey, I've got mobile device management. I don't need anything else. Mobile device management, I'm told, secures the device. That's not quite true. Mobile device management is a tool for managing the device, for getting apps on the device, for maybe configuring a password policy and using the APIs that Apple and Google give you. It's not actually protecting the device from those 4 threat vectors that I mentioned, the device, the network, the apps, and phishing. This is where you need a mobile threat defense solution to actually protect that device, from bad actors out there, from hackers, but also protect the user from doing something that they don't really want to do or they don't know that they're doing. And fortunately, MTD and MDM go together hand in hand, and most of the MTD solutions will integrate very tightly with an MDM, so that you're not having multiple solutions that are disconnected. So if you are investing in an MTD solution and wish to enable secure access to O365 and other business tools, Gartner is starting to publish information on this, and they're saying that an MTD should sort of focus on identifying and thwarting malicious threats. But what they are specifically saying is Gartner see no point in adopting antivirus solutions that do not provide behavioral anomaly prevention and detection, as this underlying mobile platform already has signature-based solutions. So what they're basically saying is there's no point in putting an antivirus solution on a mobile device, because the signatures an antivirus solution use, that means these signatures have been created because a threat is known about, and therefore Apple and Google should have already patched that device against that known threat. And they're basically saying, if you are looking at securing a mobile device, you need to have some sort of behavioral anomaly detection that can look for the unknown stuff, the unusual behavior, the so-called zero-day attacks. So that's something to bear in mind, because a number of solutions in the market do actually rely on signatures to protect a mobile device, which, according to Gartner, isn't really worth the effort. Also, the other main sort of concern, if you are looking into mobile threat defense, is how the technology works. And Zimperium and all the customers we have believe that having the detection engine on the device is a critical part of the whole mobile threat defense strategy. because a lot of solutions will have an app on the device and will take the threat data or the forensics off that device to a cloud and analyze the data, and they go, oh, we're seeing something unusual here, and then send instructions back to that mobile device to prevent that hack or that unusual behavior happening. We see this as two major issues. Firstly, if the device is compromised or connected to a compromised network, you're not going to be able to get the threat data off that device for the cloud to analyze and send the instructions back. Secondly, especially in Europe, privacy is a major concern, and even more so for BYOD devices. You can't really be sending a lot of sensitive data or personal data off a mobile device to a cloud to be analyzed and then sending information back. That just would not be acceptable from a data privacy point of view or GDPR point of view, and especially for BYOD devices. So Zimperium has created this engine. It's taken 7 years to create this engine specifically designed for iOS and Android that can sort of look at 1,000 data points we can see on an iOS or Android device and run a lot of this data through the algorithms we've developed over these several years that sit in the C9 engine, and then work out what's good or bad or suspicious, and then compare that to a policy, and in real time block that suspicious behavior. Even if that device is in airplane mode, there's no signatures to download, there's no need to send us data off to a cloud to be analyzed. Everything can happen on the device in real time without even the user knowing that device can be protected. And therefore any attack prevented, and that's across the whole phishing network, apps and device. So you can protect that device in real time without sending any data off that device. And I think that's a key component of what a good mobile threat defense solution should do. So before we get on to the demo, just quickly want to touch on zero trust, as I'm sure most people on this call will be looking at zero trust as a way to allow employees to access corporate resources and from any place on any device, which is now what's required. And it's getting pretty good now. There's good tools out there, pretty easy to actually authenticate the user. There's all the authentication tools, there's the Oktas of the world and Ping and so on, or the standard passwords or biometrics. You can sort of make sure that person accessing that device is who you think they are. So that's great. But then you want to be able to trust the device. And this is when you ideally want some sort of mobile threat defense solution on that device to make sure that device is trusted. Then how do you pull that together? How do you make sure that the user is who they say they are, and the device is in a fit purpose to access corporate resources? Fortunately, Microsoft made this quite easily with conditional access, with either Azure or Intune on the tools you probably have access to already, whereby you can have this rules engine that can ensure that, okay, that person is who they say they are, and before they can open their O365 apps or go into Zoom or Teams or Outlook or whatever on the mobile device, let's check that MTD app on that device. Let's check that device is compliant with our policy and there's nothing of any risk of running onto or anything untoward running on that device. So Zimperium integrates very tightly with Microsoft in this respect and makes it very easy for you to ensure that that device is trusted before that user get access to that apps. And this doesn't matter if it's a BYOD device or managed device, it works in the same way. Unfortunately for BYOD devices, we can set up in such a way that the MTD is not impacting any personal data or any other apps on that device. It only kicks in when someone clicks on their actual business apps. And this is what my colleague will demo in a minute. I won't labor this, but this is just a quick sort of run through of what a user will see if they are using conditional access on a mobile device. And very, very briefly, they try and click on O365, and O365 will say, hey, this is the first time you're using O365 without MTD, so install the Zips app. So then there are a couple of clicks through, install the Zips app, and then they can the screen will tell them that the threat level on the device is okay, and then you can go into your business apps. So very, very slick, not many clicks for the user, and they only do this the first time to get the actual app on the device. And this is one of the ways we can get to the MTD app on the device is by using conditional access policies, by basically saying you can't access your corporate resources until your MTD app is installed. So that's a very slick way of making sure people install the app. The other way we can ensure people install the app, and this is quite important, if you're not using conditional access, but there's no point having mobile threat defense unless it's deployed on all your mobile devices. We actually have a new sort of component of our solution called Zero Touch Enrollment, where you can actually ensure that MTD app is on all your mobile devices by pushing out a VPN profile to that device through your MDM. And in that VPN profile, we sort of embed part of that Zimperium Z9 engine. So it's, all the activity on that device is going through the Z9 engine, and then as soon as the Z9 engine sees something suspicious, there'll be an alert on that to that user saying, hey, there's something suspicious, click here to install your MTD app. And then the MTD app will be installed, and that device will enroll with your management console. So two very easy ways to get the MTD app on the device. And this used to be one of the biggest hurdles for large enterprises deploying MTD, is how do we get the app on the device, and how do you ensure it's actually running and no one's deleted it or turned it off or something. So we've now solved that problem, and it's a very slick experience for the user and for IT deploying this type of technology. The other major concern, this is my last slide before I hand over to Sergey, is privacy, and this is critical, especially in BYD environments and in European organizations where data privacy is critical. So firstly, Zimperium has the advantage of we're not sending data off that device to be analyzed and sent back. So there's no risk there of anything personal getting off that device. And secondly, you'd obviously, the IT admins would want some sort of forensic, some reporting on the state of health of that device, and if there's been a threat, what that threat was. So we can send that sort of forensic data off the device and do it in such a way that no personal identifiable information leaks. But then you may have situations where actually some of your execs or groups of users, you need a bit more information about them, and it's a corporate owned device, so you have the right to get that information. So we can set independent policies for different groups of users to extract different amounts of data from that device, compared to a BYOD device when you may not want any data off that device, just saying it's good or bad, and maybe knowing who that device is. So this is highly customizable, and again, this is a great benefit of Zimperium's technology of having sort of these group-based policies that you can enforce for different types of users in different scenarios. Okay, so that's me done. I want to just give you a quick overview of Zimperium and sort of the risk for 0365 and how we can go about against mitigating that. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end, but are there any pressing questions right now anyone wishes to ask? If not, I'll hand over to Sergey to do a demo.
There's a few questions, Matt, but we'll save those to the end. I think we'll do those after the demo. Cool.
Okay. Well, I'll stop sharing, Sergey, and allow you to give our friends a walkthrough of how we actually use this in the real world.
Thank you very much, Matt. So my name is Sergey. I'm based out of Germany, and I'm working since 4 years for Zimperium. My special area is mobile security, and I'm glad to be here today and deliver to you a live demonstration. So a quick overview. I will have a couple devices today. This is an Android device, and this is a typical bring your own device where there is no company management enforced, basically no MDM system, but company would allow the user to access corporate data through email and other Office 365 applications. I will use Outlook as an example app during today's session. And on later stage, I will have as well managed devices so that we have a good overview how protection could look like on bring your own device versus corporate managed device. So I think we have a good understanding now why we need to protect our devices. Now I will more focus on the procedure, how simple it could be for a normal user to enroll such device after touching Outlook app, for example. The Outlook app will receive from Intune a policy which will enforce user to walk through a couple steps. And basically Outlook will say, dear user, you have to protect your device before you can access your emails in your mailbox. And this is a very simple dialogue. User will need to walk through the steps to speed up my demonstration. So sometimes I will just jump to another device. But here, this is a login dialog where user will need to use its own credentials to log in against Azure Active Directory. I will use my my demo account here and just copy and paste the password. No worries, this is demo environment. It's not that I use something real here in terms of password sharing. So paste. So this is the initial step, like you probably will know when you first time enroll your device with Office 365 applications, you need to log in. The backend system now validate a lot of attributes like conditional access, what we have mentioned, and so-called conditional launch. Conditional launch is more looking after local conditions on this device. So now if I move ahead, it will check. So it's asking me again for a password. This is the registration. So this device will now be registered into Azure Active Directory, where it will pull some additional information about restrictions and other security policies. But this is basically a wizard which guide the user through those steps. It is saying Zimperium has to be present on this device, therefore I need to download it. Me as a user, I just click on this download button. It will refer me into public app store where I just download the Zimperium app, right? While it's downloading, I will show you my iOS device, where this is, by the way, my real day-to-day device, where I have Outlook, and Zips is already protecting this device. It is sharing with me the device health, how the device is configured, are there any risky configuration identified, is my operating system on the latest version, etc., etc. Am I connected to a healthy Wi-Fi network? How about applications running on this device? Are there any risky applications? And Outlook just allow me access to this device, where it is important to keep your security always on, right? Given this is a bring your own device, user has full permission to install and uninstall apps. Let's imagine user, for whatever reason, would like to uninstall the Zips application, which is responsible for security on this device, and will then try to access corporate data. This is what will happen basically if the security tool is not present on this device, where the user will be required to go ahead and install it again from the App Store. On the Android device, just to finish this enrollment, it will continue. And now it's checking the security of this device. And basically, it is saying you have to start your security tool, and then it will do single sign-on against Azure Active Directory, so that it will then automatically connect with the backend and activate Zips. And Zips will locally check if anything is risky, or basically those are few permission requests, like on any device you will need to walk through, and immediately I identified a malicious application. And this is basically all reported to the backend here, where you can have your security analysts reviewing and do proper incident investigation. We provide very detailed information. The same information is being used in order to share it with Intune, where your conditional launch policy can basically lock down any of your Office 365 applications. And now I'm moving quickly for another couple minutes, and then we shall be good and have a Q&A session. This is a corporate managed device, iOS device. The device is right now compliant and can access company resources. It is already enrolled with MDM agents, mobile device management. So this is a corporate device, and Zips is basically looking after this device. So our solution is capable to assess mobile application on each managed device, and then you as administrator can build your own policies around risk applications, or those applications you probably just want to put on blacklist because you have seen something on the news and then you're very much concerned about a particular app. And then basically you can just say, I use TikTok just an example, nothing against TikTok, but we put it on the blacklist. And this is more or less a custom signature, which is now being created and pushed to all devices, all managed devices, and user will get this dialogue. This is optional. You can customize the messaging around this, but this is now a threat, right? Even it's created by you, but the condition for that is now that this device has reported a critical threat. The severity is critical. This information has been shared with Intune. On the Intune side, we have our compliance policies, and now this compliance policy will be evaluated, and this device has become non-compliant. And if you have a conditional access policy, which you can configure then as well on your Microsoft environment, where you can define what you want to do or not do if the device is non-compliant. Even this dialog is saying it may not be able to access company resources. For this demonstration, of course, I don't want to break my demonstration right now here. Therefore, I'm doing this more in alerting mode, but the conditions you can choose here is basically, you can decide if you want to allow a non-compliant device to be registered or not, or you can just basically protect any of your Office 365 applications, Outlook, or Teams, right? What you can build is basically a conditional policy. If device is above a threshold, then you will block access to your Office 365 applications. If it's below, then the device should have access. Now we can just went back a step and make sure our device is either the user uninstalled the application. So probably we can just do this. Let's just do this in a very quick manner. So we block this device, this application, or put this on the blacklist, and then we just revert it back, and our device should get to the initial stage where everything should be fine. And from the threat log, where we report all type of risks and pending threats, this threat of malicious, suspicious application is gone. We can assume that our Intune agent will then report after a few seconds as well that this device is now compliant. And finally, we are able to integrate into Microsoft ecosystem. For example, if you protect with Microsoft Defender already or Windows PCs, there is a security center where your security operations center team can monitor incidents and threats, and we can fully integrate into that so that you can get single pane of glass and you don't need to use two consoles to monitor for incidents. We will report everything what we have detected on the devices into this console, where you will see side-loaded app, suspicious app, and then everything what Microsoft delivers in terms of mapping to probably to MITRE framework and other workflows you can leverage for your simplified incident investigation. With that, I would like to thank you very much. I hope that this provided you a good overview how you can leverage conditional access in Microsoft context and use our solution to protect your devices. Thank you very much, and back to our crew.
Thanks, Sergey. That's fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed from the Zimperium team there. So hopefully you found that useful. There were a few questions. I think we've answered some of them as we've gone along, but I'll just pick a couple out here. So probably for the Zimperium guys, but you talked about the ease of use for deploying the app. I can see that we have some Avanti customers on here, so I thought it's probably worth mentioning the integration with that.
Yeah, sure. So if you are an Avanti customer or obviously an old Mobile Iron customer, the actual Z9 engine I spoke about, which is a sort of magic source, which looks for these threats on the device, that's an SDK already embedded into the Avanti Mobile Iron app. So it's actually, if you've got Avanti on your phones today, there's an Zimperium Z9 engine that's already there, sitting there, actually not doing anything. You just need a license key to activate it. So that's the easiest deployment possible, because it's already on the device. You just need to activate it.
Okay, great. One that comes up a lot in BYOD is around ensuring the users don't feel that they're kind of being spied on. So what can we see? What do we see? And how can we try and give those users some comfort that we're not spying on them?
No, good question. We do get that a lot. So obviously, if an organization was deploying this sort of technology, there'd be some, internal comms going out to the employees, the normal, email or intranet they have on that company, advise them this is what's happening. When, in that we have templates we supply, which explains exactly what the solution does and doesn't do, and clearly states that, we're not tracking their location or looking at what websites they're visiting. And we actually spin it around saying this is a benefit we're giving you. Actually, we're protecting you as well as your corporate data, but also your personal data. And when you install the app, there's some information there about what the app is actually doing. So we don't really see this as a problem if we communicate honestly with the employee before they deploy the app.
Yeah, but I mean, we can protect the device without really seeing anything about content or
exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's probably an education thing really that needs to happen. I've also got just about where the data is going. So obviously a lot of people are concerned about kind of jurisdictions for data and all that kind of good stuff. So where does the data go from the device with?
Well, the only data that leaves the device is the forensics. This is a reporting data about what threats have been found. So most of our customers, the management console we supply is a SaaS service, so it's in the cloud. Most of our customers in Europe have their management console hosted in our environment in either AWS or Oracle in Frankfurt in Germany. But we can basically put that management console anywhere. We can put it on-prem, we can put it in a virtual private cloud in AWS, Oracle, or Azure in the UK. So the actual data, the location of the reporting data can be anywhere, but for standard, included in the basic price, it goes into Germany.
Great. And just last question from me, really, just from questions that I get asked, but I think you've already answered the Apple one, which over the last 10 years you get a lot, which is Apple's secure, isn't it? So I think you've answered that, where it is, again, signature based. I guess the same is largely true against, lots of our customers have invested in Microsoft. Clearly, it's why we're here today as well. But with Defender ATP, there is a mobile threat angle to it. I assume that's coming under the signature based rather than a 0-day platform. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Microsoft, as of many other of the security players as well, such as CrowdStrike, they have launched sort of an MTD add-on into their desktop and laptop solutions. And as you said, yeah, these are signature-based solutions. Microsoft actually gets its signatures from Bitdefender rather than develop them themselves. And obviously signatures aren't bad, but they too take some time to be developed once a threat's been found. So they aren't really useful for catching 0-day attacks, and wouldn't stop a Pegasus type attack but probably a bigger risk is actually phishing links, where we see phishing links go up and down in a couple of hours. So, you know, a signature-based phishing prevention solution won't be able to stop a user from some sort of phishing-based attack. So, you know, as Gartner said, you really need that engine on the device to be able to look at those links in real time and work out, you know, what the risk of that link is, or the risk of installing that app. And that's what we do without signatures, by using behavior anomaly detection.
And I think just to add one piece more to here, it depends, of course, what is the feature scope you're looking after. We built our solution since 10 years, right? We have a wide scope of different features. For example, if you are concerned about risks in any app which may expose your device to something like vulnerability or any privacy risks or security concerns, this is what is part of our solution. And in the new commerce, including Microsoft solution, you don't have this app advanced analysis, what we do. And then we do have very detailed and advanced web content filtering module, which is including our phishing protection, but we have over 70 different categories where you can just define the content you would allow on, for example, corporate managed devices that user probably do not have access to gambling content. And then we have advanced risk review on the operating system, where we can identify and map vulnerabilities to known CVEs, common vulnerability exposures, which is advantage to any security team, that they can understand. For example, tomorrow we will see a bunch of new CVEs released by Apple or by Google, and then everybody is concerned, how many devices do I have with those type of critical vulnerabilities? And we have this reporting capability. So basically, our threat intel is much more richer on details, and therefore we for sure have much more features in our scope. So that's really where we should not just go for a solution which allows you to have a check mark on your compliance list. I have something, it should make sense, and your security team should definitely be part of the evaluation and this decision. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sergey. Excellent. Okay, well, we're pretty much just slightly ahead of time, but Andy, do you just want to kind of a wrap up on the key summary points?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, very quickly, clearly, where we are getting to now in the mobile space is that vulnerabilities are out there. They are getting more numerous over time, and they are increasing in severity over time. And, you absolutely have to protect the device across all areas, not just the operating system. There's obviously applications, the network itself, the device, as we went through. As Matt very eloquently put across, just managing a device isn't the same as protecting the device. And very much the market itself is evolving with the threats that are targeting the user as well as the device. So obviously, what we've helped to demonstrate here as well is the way you can actually complete a security picture that incorporates bring your own as well, with an MTD solution that allows access, a secure access to your O365 estate. So I appreciate everyone's time and thank you. But yeah, hopefully that summarizes it up nicely.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you everyone for joining. We'd love to talk to you more specifically about your requirements and more detail on this, but hopefully it's been a useful introduction. Thanks again for taking the time out, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.